Welcome to The Grant, the EU funding podcast. The Grant. My name is Niels Tudor Winter, and I'm the creator, editor, and host of The Grant. The Grant is an independent podcast initiative with the ambition to dig into all corners of the EU R&D funding system on topics of interest for the full EU R&D funding community. This week we are talking impact. It has been a while since I have zoomed in on this, and I was happy when director Jorge Gonzalez from Ticbiomed here in Spain reached out to suggest an episode on the topic. Jorge shares from his many years of experience implementing projects and unfold the typical core issues that kill impact. Everyone's priority but no one's responsibility, no clear adaptation pathways, and how Project Inertia kills SMEs and their involvement. Of course, we also have a look at what should change in order to move on and get the real impact that everybody so sorely wants, including a few hints to the Brussels ecosystem. Please enjoy. Grant. Welcome to The Grant, the EU funding podcast. Today we're going to talk impact. And it's probably an example of me getting more and more reach and more people realizing that there's a podcast that is out there and that it's weekly and it digs into all kinds of things. So I get requests here and there, and this is an example of that. So before I'm going to unfold any more of this, Jorge, welcome.
Oh, thank you very much, Niels, for having me.
We're going to talk impact today on your requests because it's something that you work a lot with in your organization. But before we do anything else, can you shortly introduce yourself?
I'm Jorge Gonzalez. I'm the director of Ticbiomed. We are a business association located in Spain, in sunny Murcia. We have been working with European projects for 16 years, mainly in the area of health. But lately, we have been working a lot in terms of exploitation of projects, everything that is related to that. We also do things related to innovation procurement, demand-driven innovation. So we are moving from a specialist of health, so to say, into the area of demand-driven innovation, and also especially in terms of exploitation in European projects.
Mm-hmm. I'm happy to have a health-related guest on board because I actually haven't had health in the program yet. Not that we're going to, it's more generic what we're going to talk about today, but it's just nice to cover more broadly. I've been having energy people in and biotechnology and so on. Now, you have a specific focus on impact in your end, and you also have an opinion about it, or at least you have some reflections that you share through your LinkedIn profile and so on. But can you maybe give the listeners and me short 2 lines on what your concern is in relation to this?
Right. What we have seen during these 16 years is that we do a lot of innovation, and most of the time, the project delivers successful outputs. And then what we see is that these outputs, the solutions that are generated in the projects, they do not get adopted. Mm-hmm. At the end, it's like the project ends and everything goes to the valley of death. So for some reason, we are frustrated about that. We don't think it's right. And especially for now in the times that we are, everybody's, especially after drug reports, we are talking about competitiveness. Mm-hmm. So we don't think that it helps to anyone that the project goes to nowhere after the project is finished, and it's kind of also, it's not only us because we get paid and we live out of this, but it's also that we believe we are killing the culture of innovation, especially, for example, in our case, we work a lot with healthcare organizations. And when you get involved, the doctors, the healthcare professionals, you get them involved in innovation, most likely it's the first innovation project that they work with. They put a lot of time, taking it from their work or from sleep or from their family. And when the project finally delivers something that they like, then say, guys, the project is over. And then the organization is not buying that solution, then everybody's gone, and they say, okay, what a waste of my time, of my illusion, of my my passion to improve things. Never call me again for another innovation project. And they not only tell us this, they tell everybody. So it really harms the innovation mindset that, especially, for example, in our case, public organizations, public health organizations should have. And we think that is terrible. So it is not only a waste of public money in the terms of the European projects, but it's also that really damages the ecosystem. So that's why we are trying to do something about it.
And this is probably one of the probably one of the oldest problems with the EU innovation research funding schemes, right? The actual effect of money put into it and what is coming out of it. It's also I've been having this topic in this podcast before, naturally, in different shades and colors, and it is it's this you when you have such a big system with funding, it has a danger or risk to move into projects for the sake of the projects.
Exactly.
And that's what we're going to talk about today. It was flying. So let's just because there's going to be a lot to discuss as we move in. Exactly this. So that's the topic of today. So first and foremost, Jorge, we're going to have a look at your claim to fame and what you have been doing. So your experience on the ground. Fold out, Ticbiomed.
Right. So as I said, we have participated in more than 20 projects over time, and many of them, they have been cascade funded, meaning that we also pay other people, third parties, to do innovation with our money. I mean, with the checks that we are provided by the European Commission. So that means that our experience in project is much bigger than these 20 projects. But at the end of the day, is the same thing. It's like we get very engaged into making things happen during the pilot execution. We believe it's going to save the world and it's really useful. And then we put a lot of effort on that. And then again, as I say, the majority of the times an innovative solution is found that solves the challenge. Okay, but then it's like the project finished. And then in terms of the next steps, like, of course, a lot of people say, no, we want it. I mean, sometimes it's like, we don't care because our business model is not doing this, for example, consultancy organizations, which is fine. But especially when you have a customer organization on the consortium, what it makes sense is that, especially in these demand-driven projects that we were mentioning, this pre-commercial procurement, is like, guys, you ask for this. You say that you wanted this. We have contributing with public money, with our effort, with our expertise. Now, a successful solution is found. The logical step is that you adopt it, that you either launch a tender or you just get an agreement with the company, whatever, but that this is implemented in your organization to deliver the value that you told us in the first place. And we see that doesn't happen. The majority of the times, now only a very few cases, very small percentage of cases, this happens. And especially, you have to force it for it to come. But naturally, and that's why we think it's a systemic problem, it doesn't happen.
Yeah, and it's not, you are an innovation cluster, which means you must have companies as your members, no?
Right.
Yeah. So you would think that if you allocate resources, not just because you get funding, because there's also, companies, they don't just do something for, if they step into something, it's because there's this connection to an innovation strategy or something that they want to achieve vis-a-vis their own business model, how they work. Where do you see that glitch coming in? Because if you have them,
you see, I mean, it's funny because we have talked here about demand, but we also have the offer. Now you ask for the supply side, so to say.
Mhm.
I mean, the thing is that some companies, they have innovation departments, and they need to pay salaries, right? They need to pay mortgages. So sometimes these units, they see the project as an opportunity to, keep the infrastructure, to deliver the service, but it is not geared to make that a product. Okay, is that they understand the project as an opportunity to kind of service delivery and outsourcing of technology development, but not because it will be part of their portfolio. I'm not saying that all of them, they are like this, but we see more. And actually, the bigger the company, the bigger the risk that it is their research and innovation unit that is running the show with no connection to the business and the business strategy. So, surprisingly as it sounds, Niels, it also happens in the company side. Okay, that you will see. Okay, these guys have a bet interested in participating in the project at a minimum because of the opportunity cost that maybe they could be doing something else. But because we have this kind of innovation theater that we are very familiar with, they are there basically for the money. And don't get me wrong, they do a very good job developing the technology. The problem is that it is not deployed afterwards.
And I know this because I've been in the corner myself, so I know this. So it's just, I'm just pushing a question here. So just to fold it out. So let's just move into thanks. Let's move into the actual conversation. So here, the next block we have here, that's when innovation becomes counterproductive. So let's fold that out a little bit. How repeated non-adoption kills entrepreneurial spirit inside organizations, staff burnout. Can you fold out this a little bit? What actually happens here?
Right. I mean, there are several sides here. One is that the usual suspects that we know how the system works, and we basically live out of the system. We include it here. Okay. It happens to us. More than say 90% of our income comes from the European Commission. So what happens there is that these guys, they are there because they know what they are going to get from the minute number one that they join the consortium. Problem is when you have the other people that they are not so much in the innovation theater and that they truly want something to happen, but they are not, so kind of familiar. So what are the expectations? So when they get engaged in these projects, they truly want that solution to work because they want to improve, say, patients' life, or they want to support other people, or to make business grow, whatever the objective of the project. But then when the project finishes and they see that there is no traction, they look back and say, why I have been putting my time, effort, motivation, illusion into this, if at the end of the day nothing happens. Because, for example, in the healthcare space, and again, this is completely cross-sector, we have seen it. We participate in a lot of different sectors now at this stage in our organization. And the thing is that some people are used to research, so they publish things, and they can say, okay, at a minimum, I publish this in my curriculum, and I can put it in value afterwards, and at least I can show a paper to my family saying, hey, I'm super smart, I publish a paper. With innovation, it's not like that. Innovation is more close to market, close to reality. So if all your work goes to nowhere, you don't get any benefit from it. You say, yeah, but you learned. No. It's not worth it. So that's why they say, no, I don't want to get involved in anything like that. And again, it's not only them, it's all the team, all the friends of this guy, right? So that's why it's so bad for the culture of innovation, especially in organizations where they don't have so much experience with innovation. And that's the danger. Because, and let me stress, because what changes an organization is not a project. It's not two projects. It's the mindset that you get because you give opportunities to entrepreneur people that they want to improve things. And because things work, these guys are becoming, heroes within the organization. And then management gives rewards those that want to live in innovation, because they say, okay, this is an organization that innovates, that when there is a problem, we deliver a solution. And that's the things that change the organization, the culture, the mindset. And when you don't have experience and you just kill that mindset because nothing happens after innovation, that's where you stagnate. And that's when you basically, you don't deliver better services, you are not more competitive, and so on. So that's the real waste, apart from, obviously, from the waste of public money and the opportunity cost.
Yeah. I always, I've been a project facilitator for many years, a civil servant one, so not just for fee grants consultant project facilitator, so to say, but also an actual facilitator that without an interest, just wanting to help people to. And what I always said to people, because some of the organizations I worked for were regional authorities, so that were trying to encourage their local SMEs or municipalities to join projects. What I always said, because this is vital, right, to how you perceive both the proposal, the project implementation, and what comes afterwards. You need to perceive this. You don't need to look at the opportunity of the funding. You need to look at what you want with your organization, and don't ever touch EU funding if you don't have a clear idea of where you want to go. Now, if you have a clear, this is why I have spent much of my civil servant career in having the conversations with especially SMEs. Say, look at your innovation strategy. Look at that, and look at where you want to be with this product in 2 to 5 years, whatever. Then you see, do we need to work with others? Do we need to work with universities? Would it be better if we made funding, or should we make a B2B collaboration, whatever? Find out. And then if you see, okay, this makes sense in a context of an EU project, then you do it. Because then it all comes together with what you want to do as a commercial organization. Where do you want to be? Because then you are bound to drive it forward. You have all the energy you need to put into making it happen and making a successful project, and taking the advantage of what comes out, because it's part of your own innovation strategy. But it's so that's what I've been telling them. But exactly here, that's when they get, sometimes, a lot of times, especially SMEs, they get lost in the whole EU funding theater. They lose the laser sight, and everything just blurs into interim reports and deliverables for this and that, and
Right.
work partner meetings and weird emails they're not used to, and so on and so forth. You have professionalized companies, right, that knows how to deal with this, and that's fine. But most of them are like this, and that's where they lose the point, and then they just leave me in peace.
Well, that's definitely one reason. We, however, see other reasons.
Yeah.
Another reason is, like, when you say we talk with an organization, what is critical here is to say, with whom do you talk? Because
Yeah.
if you talk with them, with the innovation unit, that again, they need to, I mean, their business is to get into projects, but maybe sometimes, or many times, they are not connected with the management, with the real business development guys. So they are invited. Well, you know how it works. Okay, suddenly someone comes, hey, we are creating a consortium. Do you want to join? I'll say, okay, what's my budget? When is the deadline? This is stuff. There is no, many of the times, there is no internal discussion about how aligned it is. Or if it is, they say, okay, just go ahead. Let's see if you get the project, get it done. And once we get to that river, we will cross the bridge if necessary, in 2-3 years. And then what happens then is that the innovation unit says, hey guys, we have done this project. The project is great. Here it goes. But by the way, my work is not to put it in value in to move it forward in the organization. My role as innovation unit is to do yet another European project, innovation project. So someone in the organization should take care of it. And the problem is that, who is that someone? You know, is there a governance to transition between successful innovation pilot and deployment? Usually not, or in the majority of the organizations, we know. Because what happens is that during the innovation pilot team, it is the technical guys or the innovation guys that are, that are interacting, say, for example, with the customer. But when they finish, it's the role of other people, like, business development or, other people that they need to say that you have to pay for something.
Corporate level.
Yeah, so the different people, different departments that sometimes or many times they don't speak to each other. Also leaving things at the end, that's another issue. It's not a good idea. If you have not anticipated the adoption of the solution, once the project is over, everybody's very busy. I mean, the innovation unit guys go to the next funding opportunity, because that's what they pays them. The technical guys, again, they are very busy. There is no structure with deadlines, deliverables, as you were saying, to keep the rhythm.
Yep.
And especially, for example, if you're a public organization and your project finishes in April, hey guys, this is not in the annual budget. Come again in December, and then we see what we can do. And well, you know what happens in December, right? Basically nothing. So it's not that they kill it because they want to kill it. It's because it dies because nobody cares.
Yeah. Because we already started to moving in on the structural reasons here. So let's just move into this block now.
Right.
So structural reasons behind this problem. What we have here is about ownership, governance, fragmentation of policy, and so on and so forth. What are your thoughts?
Right. What we see is that exactly what you were mentioning before, that from the very beginning, there should be a commitment at organizational level, not only at innovation unit or whatever, organizational level, like, guys, if we get here, it's because we plan to get to the end. And the end means deployment, and the end means, it becomes part of our day-to-day reality. And we don't see that. And there are other problems that maybe the management changes, but because there was not an organizational commitment to say, if we get here, it's because we do it properly, not only a pilot phase, but also a deployment phase. Then that's one structural issue. Another structural issue is the perverse incentives that we have to get into European projects. Okay, European projects, let's get it clear, is the best funding in Europe. Full stop. No national, regional funding scheme is more generous and better paid than the European. So getting there, it has a lot of incentives for companies that, again, they truly do the work. I'm not saying that they don't do it. On the contrary, at the pilot phase, they do the work. But because of the business model is not to actionate on the results of the project, they consider that money to be kind of subcontracting, a kind of consultancy job. And they do it very well. But then say, guys, this is not really my core. This is what the European Commission asked me. That's another problem. When the European Commission becomes very prescriptive, what they get are Frankenstein consortiums where people get together just to comply with what the European Commission is asking in the call.
Yeah.
With not truly interested to make this a reality. Means how many platforms do you know out of European projects that they are after they after the project, nobody cares about them. So why stop asking for platforms and matchmakings and this kind of thing?
No, but it's yeah. Actually, I saw something on LinkedIn one of these days that is it in the Erasmus program maybe? They have started to changed the description of what they want, so we don't need so the commission is actually aware of this. They build on platforms that are already there. We don't need more platforms. But it's absolutely correct. It's because nobody cares about the platforms when there's no funding left.
They say that for FP10 they are going to be less prescriptive, which I think is it's good to let people work on what they really want to work, not what they, with all my respect, with maybe civil servant wants thinks is important, because otherwise they will deliver what that person wants for sure, but not traction afterwards. So let people work on what they truly want, and then pick the ones that you really like, not do it the other way around.
Stepping into another issue there that's not the part of this conversation, but that is if you the more loose you make it, the more proposals will be sent, and that is actually an issue now because of AI and so on. That proposal numbers are skyrocketing.
We have a proposal for that, Niels. Okay, so in Europe, for more competitiveness, I believe we produce excellent science. The problem is not in the section excellence. The problem is in the section impact. And not because I include myself, we don't promise the moon in the section impact. It's because the credibility of the commitment to adopt and deploy is not checked during selection time, during execution, or after follow-up, after the project ends. So one of the reasons that nothing happens is because there is no accountability. What you promise in the exploitation plan, which especially now with ChatGPT, is just paper. Okay, you just introduce the call, what you do, and then you have a report. How many pages do you want the report to be? Okay, so the problem is not the exploitation plan that you perhaps the trainee writes. The problem is what we ask in our project is, tell me the governance, tell me who is going to do what, with which resources, when, after the project finishes. And the key question here is who, because if the who is nobody, or is someone that has no power to implement that solution, it directly goes to the valley of death. So what we propose to do is that, having on the same grounds of excellence, pick the consortium that gives you more credibility in terms that they are going to do something with the results. So there is when you have the filter, and then is when it is not artificial intelligence, is the quality of the consortium what matters most in terms of future adoption. It's not what you promised me in the proposal. And the thing is that, and sorry if I talk too much, the thing is that if you send signals to the ecosystem that what matters is uptake, but true uptake, then the ecosystem will listen, and they will perhaps invite new players that they can really adopt, instead of the same people always applying to the calls, basically to do, to pay for our mortgages, but with no true intention from the beginning to uptake or deploy the solutions that we create.
But let's just thanks. Let's just look at to see if we have covered everything we need to do in the structural reasons here. In the rundown here, do you have your lobbying experience from Brussels? Is there anything you want to share from there?
Right. Yeah, I move. There is nothing worse than motivated stupid. So we are not for profit, and we believe that it's part of our mission to talk about these topics, because a startup, an SME, a public organization is not the business to do that. They may complain, they may suffer it, but it's not the business. So we have taken over this, and I moved for 4 months to Brussels with my family to try to advocate. Well, advocate is the nice word for lobby, right? The European Commission now before now that FPT discussions, and I learned a lot. I really learned a lot. I mean, first of all, my experience was that nobody told me that having innovation more impact is not important. Everybody agrees that this is an important topic. But nobody was accountable. I was having the hot potato syndrome, like, oh, yes, but it is not my responsibility. Talk with that person. Oh, I already talked with them, but tell me that it is you. No, it's not me. Talk with this another person. And then when I was moving from one to another, and again, I got a lot of sympathy, but very little traction, because it's like every unit is looking just to the actual scope. There is like no overarching structure, person, whatever you want to call it, that is looking to put in all the pieces together. So from the beginning till the end, there is an optimization so that you get more impact at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
There is no coordination towards that end. And sadly, well, things are like this, at least in my experience. Hopefully I'm wrong, but I can tell you, I can be very persistent. I try and talk with a lot of people, but that is my experience.
Yeah, I think you're very right. But what from my experience with both Brussels and working with the communities in different different areas, sectors, and so, the Commission is taking the impact very serious, and they have over the years tried different ways, both from the structural point of view. They tried to change the template, right? If you've been working with this long enough, you will know that from FP6 to FP7 to Horizon Europe, there's been a shift in the weight of how much impact and how much you're supposed to do, and it keeps shifting to more and more. Yeah. Then you have the Commission trying to. I've actually. It's been a couple of years ago. I did that podcast recording, but that was when they did hackathons with unused patents from funded projects, yeah, because eventually, if nobody uses it, you can offer it, yeah. So they started to introduce hackathons for anyone that would like to join, Commission or organize, right, to get this out and working. So it's not, they try to do something with it, but the problem persists with the project for projects.
Right. I mean, it is, things are not going to change overnight. I mean, because the ecosystem has more time, has more motivation, and sometimes this is smarter than anything that a policymaker can do. Okay. The question for us is to introduce small changes, see how they work, and keep on them. So for us, again, it's more a kind of iterative process. But before, there needs to be the willingness, the motivation, the resources, at least one person to think specifically that their work is, let's see how we can optimize impact. And what we see is that, okay, there is hope and not so much hope. One thing is that, I don't know, what we have heard is that in the next template, the impact section has been reduced. Okay. But at the same time, with this competitiveness fund that is going to be in parallel with FP10, is going to be more focused on innovation and competitiveness. The question is, and this is a kind of the structural problem, is that who is in charge to think about this? Because you can hear a lot about simplification, okay? And you hear a lot, simplify, simplify, simplify. Okay, where is the mantra about more impact, more impact, more impact? Okay, it is also kind of side thing. With simplification, they are actually working, and this is very needed. Okay, they have reduced the template, they are skipping sections that are redundant, and that is great, that is fantastic. But what about having structural things, like, for example, asking for credible commitment, asking for, okay, what you promise in the exploitation part and the proposal, you don't wait till the project ends, but you start working in the governance, not in the exploitation plan, but in the governance for the later uptake. All these small things that, putting them together, you get little by little more impact, at least in a percentage of projects. Okay, we are not here black and white. We are here to make it work iteration after iteration. And that's what we don't see. And we think FP10 competitiveness is a huge opportunity, because this is the window of reflection for the European Commission. So that's why we have this initiative. We call it Impactful Innovation, where we have put together policy papers. We're putting together.
I'm gonna put you on a hold here, and then we're just gonna go into the next block, because that's what you want to talk about now.
Right.
Yeah.
I am Barbara de Mena, and you must listen to the grant.
Okay.
Yeah. So what? So here, next block is of course what needs to change. So some reflections about how can we deal with this? What can be done now? So if you start with that, so your own initiative.
Right. So, as I was saying, we have put together this initiative that is called Impactful Innovation. What we are trying to do with it is to first make the ecosystem aware, policymakers, of course, but also the other people in the ecosystem say, like, wait a minute, guys, let's stop. Why do we do things in the first place? Okay, because it's like sometimes we feel like this mouse in the wheel that you keep on working, 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 and then you just take it for granted, or you just assume that the game, the theater is to do projects, and as soon as the project is finished, where is my next project? Okay, instead of saying, why do we do things in the first place? That's what you were saying to the organizations you work with, right? Guys, this needs to be in your strategy. There has to be something happening after the pilot. So what we have done is like we participate in a project that is called Procure for Health, and we created a working group. We interacted with the ecosystem, asking, why do you think this happens? What will be your potential solutions? And then as part of that project, we organized even a conference in Murcia, our hometown. We did the Impactful Innovation Conference. Around 100 people attended, where we discussed about these things. Okay, and the thing is that, well, obviously we were all believers, and it was very clear to us that this doesn't make sense. Problem is that without the policymakers and the funders changing the rules of the game, it's very hard. We obviously, in our projects from Ticbiomed, whenever we have a cascade funding, that's what we ask. For example, we ask 40% of our score for granting a project is credibility of commitment to future development or to future uptake. But that's only us. In order to make this big, it has to come from the source, the guys with the money, because they put the rules, they set the incentives, they create the selection criteria. The selection, how they are changing the template. What about the selection criteria, Niels? How much the selection criteria has changed in the last years? Okay, so that for us is critical. For us, it's much more important the selection criteria than the template, and we don't see that. So, for instance, so what we are now is that also as part of our commitment to this Impactful Innovation Initiative, I moved to Brussels. We produce policy papers. We share with them, with the policymakers, and we can continue to push this in social networks and so on and so forth. And yeah, so we are trying to make it happen. We get the sympathy of a lot of people, I think, including yourself. But it is a long-run initiative. We will keep on doing that, but that's why we were interested in being in your podcast. The more people thinking in these lines, and just realizing, like, wait a minute, stop for a second. Why do we do innovation in the first place?
Yeah, no, why do you do innovation projects?
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's of course, but the good thing, that is that actually this is something that you don't have friction from the commission side. You might have a big system that needs to, but they are very open for any suggestions or input on to get their money out and work better, because they invest. It's taxpayers' money, right? It's commission. It's thrown into this, so they have absolutely no interest in seeing it being flushed out after projects are gone. So that's good. Yeah. So what we have here in the rundown, right? So we need to have stronger links between pilots, procurement, regulation, and market uptake. So would you should that be a condition for the evaluators? So putting it in the template, or how would you structure this? Or do you have any idea of how to?
Yes. As I was mentioned before, for us, what is critical are the selection criteria.
Yeah.
I think that the excellence and implementation are good enough. But in terms of impact, what we think is that, first of all, there should be more granularity in the selection criteria for any of the sections, because sometimes because they are so, so wide, so to say, so broad.
Mhm.
That's why you have, in our opinion, so much variability between evaluators, because it's not so precise. For example, you have other programs like the I3 that is much more clear what the commission is asking for in terms of evaluating. So what we will do is to put in the selection criteria, like, show me how do you plan to update the solution, but you need to be credible. And if you don't want, because the lawyers from the European Commission say, no, you cannot ask for that, make it competitive. Especially now in the area, as you say, the European Commission is getting a tsunami of proposals because of the AI. Okay? Say, guys, if you want to win this, you need to be credible in terms of what we are going to do afterwards. So the battle is not in how well you write that you will do an exploitation plan. The battle is that how this project is aligned with your corporate strategy. What is the governance you are going to do? We have projects, Niels, that in the application flow, the management say, I have already allocated budget to procure for this solution if it works. Obviously, that organization has much more credibility than someone that says, well, let's see, we will create an exploitation plan. Okay, so then, because we all move by incentives, then people will start realizing, guys, if we want to win this, we need to be serious about update. And just by doing, if you ask me, the only thing that I will do, it will be this: asking for credibility and putting enough weight to that counts. As we say, we put 40% on the credibility of uptake in our codes. Okay. Then another thing that you can do is during execution time. For example, that you ask the project officer, and I know that they are super busy, but you invest in having project officers that they check that what you promise in terms of how you will do exploitation, it really happens. Okay, you have, or even just with the ones that go into the booster program, if you know that, right? This program to support projects, and just for the believers, okay, just for the small percentage that join the booster and say, yeah, I want to really boost this project. Okay, help them to do an exploitation that makes sense. Okay, for example, with these best practices, you need to talk between the technical and the business guys during execution. You need to have a governance. You need to allocate resources in time when the project finishes. You need to set up the right team. All these things that are, this is not rocket science. It's just common sense. If you are motivated, that's what you will do anyway. And I know this is very tricky when I talk with policymakers, you should do some kind of follow-up after the project end, okay? If you don't want to go with the stick, fine, but at least put some carrots. Make the people that really uptake deployed, make them heroes, give them visibility, give them an award, just take a photo opportunity with whoever, so people see, okay, I get recognized, and other people see these guys seems that they are liked by the European Commission, so maybe that's why they win so many projects. Whatever. So there are things, and all of these needs, all of this is €0 to the Commission. €0. It takes more time, it takes brain power, but it's €0. So again, if we do innovation to have an impact, maybe it's not a question of putting more money, throwing more money in Horizon Europe for the sake of throwing money. It is more about being smarter on how we run the show.
Yeah, definitely something like this would be able to at least, shift a little bit the balance. Thanks. Let's move into the reflections and advice now. You have reflected a lot. This is the nature of the conversation we have here. But do you have any companies or your peers around Europe working in innovation clusters? Do you have anything you want to share with them on how to do you have anything you want to share with the commission? Do you like do what anything that that people can take with them from this conversation?
I want to make a message for the commission. I mean, and for any policymaker at national, regional that they fund innovation, and something for the beneficiaries of those. For the policymakers, what I ask them is to think about them. Again, for them, I know them. The people that I know are super smart. Okay, they are higher education, some of them PhDs. But this is not that. It's that sometimes they think that people do what they promise. And it's not that people are bad, but because there are these kind of perverse incentives, it doesn't happen like that. The reality is that this doesn't happen. So thinking seriously about deployment and putting the right incentives to move the ecosystem into the path of adoption and then impact is something they should devote at. And if they can put someone on a structure to systemically think about how impact can be improved, iteration after iteration, call after call, program after program. Okay, so it's a question of ownership also in this organization. The problem, as I was mentioning before, the problem is of the hot potato. Is like, who is in charge of making systemically that the funding has more impact over time? My experience now I'm in contact with some people at the European Commission that they are very aligned and they might be on the right spot, and I do really hope that they succeed. Okay, so I'm not blaming everyone. It is that we are all living in this innovation theater, and sometimes we lose the perspective. Okay, but again, I think I really at the end I'm getting in touch with people that truly believe in this, and hopefully they can do something about that. Knowing that changing organizations, especially big public organizations, is not easy. So that's what the only thing, that stop for a minute and create some kind of ownership so the impact can be improved over time, iteration after iteration. Now, for the true beneficiaries, for the beneficiaries that they truly want to have an impact and adoption, what we say is that for adoption, you need anticipation. You don't just think about adoption at the end of the pilot. You need to think about adoption from the very beginning. What you were saying, Niels, in terms of like, is this really fitting your strategy? Or is it better to let this opportunity pass and really focus our efforts in something that is aligned with this? Do we have really the people in the consortium that really want to put that in value with us, so we have more chances to succeed? During project execution, do we set up the structures to think and the time to think what is going to happen afterwards? Do we set up the governance? Do we allocate budget to what is coming? Do we have the right teams? So for adoption, you need anticipation. And that, in order to have this, so this will be my two messages, okay? Ownership of impact and anticipation for adoption.
Thanks. My segment that I have in all my shows here, the toughest challenge. And I sent you a wrong one, so you only had, and I only sent you yesterday the update of the rundown. But it's quite simple. Our toughest challenge to achieve real and sustainable impact.
The toughest challenge is that it is, it's almost an initiative of freaks. People that they don't put they don't want to do business as usual. As I said, we from Ticbiomed, the majority of our funding comes from the European Commission. We don't need to do that. Actually, we are taking our time and our money in order to do this, and it doesn't pay any bills. Okay, but we think it's part of our mission. So our toughest challenge right now is to influence the policymakers, because they have the power to set up the incentives. Okay. The second toughest challenge is to convince the ecosystem that with little changes they can get much more impact if they anticipate stuff. So those, you asked for one, I gave you two, but because there are two different audiences. So those are the toughest challenges in our opinion.
Thanks. We finished. Thank you so much for joining me. There was a very, very nice exchange here. Now I'm just going to land the plane before we shut the program down. So, dear listeners, thank you so much for listening to the end. I hope you enjoyed this exchange and reflection on the state of impact from EU projects. Now, go to my website, thegrant.eu, if you like what you're hearing here. There's a lot of content there. If you're a first timer, you have more than 200 podcast episodes on EU R&D funding. It's not everything on impact, but there's a lot. If you like what you've been hearing here, there's a lot of other content there that you like. And my website is made like a library. So if you go to Podcast Universe in there, you'll find categorized buttons at the top where you can go. So you have university, you have coordinators, you have proposal preparation, you have implementation, and so on. So go out, browse, and see what you find in there. And when you go there and say, wow, this is absolutely fantastic, I want to support this guy, you go to the bottom of that of each site. You have a online form to subscribe to my email list, and that's how you support a humble independent podcast like myself. Finally, of course, connect with me on LinkedIn. That's where the flow is. That's where the fun happens. Also, go and like the Grant page. That's where the push is. That's also where I pick up lots of my guests, and that's where the outreach is. So do that. That's that. Also, go to the page of this episode, and I will connect you to Jorge here. His LinkedIn site to connect with him. Ask us questions if you want. You can send us questions. Feel free to do so. So that's that. Jorge, thanks.
Thanks to you, Niels. A pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. Now let's say goodbye to the dear listeners. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Grant. All the Grant episodes have their own site on the Grant website. You'll find the link in the episode site where you listen to your podcast. On the site for this episode, you'll find a link to Jorge's personal LinkedIn site and a link to Ticbiomed's site. Next week, I have a wonderful talk with Nina Meklic from Slovenia about Central and Eastern Europe and access to EU funding. A fantastic conversation. You can indeed look forward to that.